Hello and welcome to An Old Man Watches, and today I'm going to be talking about Scooby-Doo 2, Monsters Unleashed from 2004. This film begins sometime after the gang's adventures on Spooky Island, which were depicted in the first movie, with the Scooby Gang attending the opening of the Coulsonian Criminology Museum, which has an exhibition that commemorates their many successful investigations. However, surprise, surprise, an evil masked figure interrupts the event and steals two of the display items, costumes worn by their previous adversaries. Suddenly finding themselves the objects of ridicule in the press due to being upstaged at their own big event, the gang set out to find the culprit and bring them to justice. Just as in the first film, however, their efforts to unmask the villain are going to be complicated by the fact that real magical powers appear to be at work. Can the gang overcome the evil masked figure and its host of supernatural minions like the Skeleton Men, the Pterodactyl Ghost, and the dreaded Tar Monster? Well, yes, of course they can. That's how Scooby-Doo works. The success or failure of the film depends on the journey, not the destination. Now, in video games, the second entry in a franchise is often an improvement on the first. The best elements of the original are refined and expanded, the worst elements revised or removed. That's not often the case with movies, however. Notoriously, the sequel is never good as the original. And the real question is, here is, does Monsters Unleashed dodge the curse of sequelitis? And I think, the answer to that question is that opinions differ. Let's talk about why. So, first of all, we should start with the fact that this is a very silly movie. Critical response to Scooby-Doo 2 was poor, with generally unfavourable reviews. It even won the Razzie for Worst Remake or Sequel in 2004, which is a travesty given some of the other nonsense that came out that year. And most of the complaints seemed to focus on the fact that it was silly and oriented towards younger audiences. To which I say, did you not get the memo that this is a Scooby-Doo movie? Of course it's silly. Of course it's aimed at kids. It should be silly and it should be aimed at kids. It's a Scooby-Doo movie. If you're not on board with things that are silly and aimed at kids, why are you even watching it? Well, probably because you have kids and they made you take them to it. But seriously, to my mind, silliness in a Scooby-Doo movie is, not something to complain about. It's something to expect. I mean, yes, you're going to have juvenile stuff like fart jokes in it, but at least in this movie, unlike the first one, those jokes actually have plot relevance. To me, it uses its silliness quite well. And in fact, I found Monsters Unleashed to be a pleasant surprise. I feel it's funnier than the first film, and when it resorts to its most juvenile humour, it does so with purpose, rather than just because they figure, they're going to be 8-year-olds in the audience and they will laugh at this stuff. It's also a much better Scooby-Doo film. It's tonally a better match for the source material. It has monsters that genuinely feel like something off the show. It has better developed red herrings for who the bad guy might be. Overall, to me, this was a breezy, fun film and that genuinely seems to have affection for its source material. And that's, I think, an important thing. If you're going to make a movie based on a well-loved franchise and you don't have affection for your own source material, you are asking for trouble. And I didn't feel like the first film had that much affection for the original show. It seemed more interested in poking fun at the source material. Now, I was never a huge fan of the original run of the Scooby-Doo TV show, but if you're going to poke fun at your source material, you are taking a risk. And I think that the prior film made several missteps in its execution of that. This film doesn't do those things. It avoids that. It's playing the whole Scooby-Doo thing pretty straight, basically. And I think it's a better movie for doing that. Speaking of my review of the original Scooby-Doo, I took some time in that video to call out how great Matthew Lillard was as Shaggy. Not that the rest of the main cast were bad. They were perfectly fine in their roles, but they didn't quite inhabit the character to the same degree that Lillard did. I'm pleased to say in this sequel, everyone appears very much more settled and comfortable in their roles. They're all really good in this. They feel much closer to their original TV incarnations than they did in the first film. Now, that could partly be because the film in general hews closer to the tone and style of the source material, rather than trying to be a postmodern deconstruction of it. But it's also likely that they just had more time to get comfortable with the roles. And I also think that, outside of the main cast, this film makes better use of guest stars, cameos to round out the experience. Ultimately, Scooby-Doo 2, Monsters Unleashed, ends up to be what I consider to be the superior of the two live-action Scooby-Doo films. Would it work as well if I hadn't seen the first Scooby-Doo first? That's a good question. It might not do, is the honest answer. It might not do. Because I think this film does build on some of what happened in the first film, in terms of the way the characters interrelate and interact. But I do think it is a better Scooby-Doo movie overall than the first movie was. So that is Scooby-Doo 2, Monsters Unleashed. Next time, I'm going to talk about one of my favourite examples of straight-to-VHS schlock, 1986's America 3000, which self-bids itself as an outrageous post-nuke adventure. But that's next time. In the meantime, thanks for watching this one, and I hope you enjoyed it.